Hi, Charles County. Welcome to another episode of Cracking the Code, where we talk about all things related to permit zoning regulations here in Charles County. As always, I am joined by the wonderful Liz Theobalds, who's our Deputy County Attorney. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for inviting me again.
Thanks, Liz. And also joining us today is Cindy Bilbra from our Planning and Growth Management Department. Cindy is our Planning Supervisor. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Doria Fleischer from Media, and we're so glad you're tuning in to Cracking the Code. All right, so Cindy, I feel like we need to start this conversation with, there is a lot of stuff happening this spring. The weather is beautiful. People are getting outside. Events are happening. People are celebrating. It's a wonderful part of being in Charles County. And there is one really wonderful celebration coming in Charles County for you, but not for us this year. What is the big celebration I'm referring to?
I will be retiring this July.
After how many years of service?
30. It's either 37 or 38, but who's counting?
But who's counting? But you are counting the days down to retirement,
yes? I have 100 days.
So we were laughing. We really wanted to get you in to talk on the Cracking the Code series because you are such a wealth of information about stuff like this. And I really appreciate you squeezing us in, and we will certainly be missing you in July. So thank you. Cindy's here to talk to us today about special events because as the weather gets good, we're celebrating, we're outside, we're doing things. And hosting a special event in Charles County means that there are some things you have to consider, yes?
Yes.
So when we talk about special events and public events in Charles County, and you're here to talk about the permitting process for that, what is a public event or a special event? How do we define that?
That is anything that you are inviting the public to come, like an open party. You don't have to necessarily charge to have people come. It's just for when you invite the public to attend.
Okay, so it could be ticketed, but it doesn't need to be ticketed. It could be free.
Right.
It could be at a cost.
Right.
That part doesn't matter. What matters is that any person could walk into your event versus my child's birthday party where I send out specific invitations to these people, and the only people coming are those people.
Right.
Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we're looking at carnivals, circuses. We have the truck and tractor pull in Charles County. We have different events that.
And I saw we talked about kind of some craft fairs, the haunted houses, car shows, so anything that gets out where anybody could walk in and celebrate.
Correct.
Okay. And the reason that we have a permit process for this, because I can appreciate when I wear kind of my different shoes of a community member, I can appreciate where some community members would be like, well, this is good for the community. Why can't I, why would you make my life hard to do this? We want people in Charles County to have things to do. Why is there a permit process for this?
So the permit process is primarily set up for safety issues.
Okay.
When we get the application in, we distribute it out to different agencies that will look at different aspects. That the health department, they're going to look at food, bathrooms, sanitary facilities. We have the sheriff's department review it. They look at it for crowd control, security, stuff like that. Fire marshal sometimes gets involved if you're doing fireworks or anything to that nature. Liquor board, if you have an event that may say it's a wine tasting, they want to make sure that the venue that comes in is licensed to sell their or do their tastings. And
it's interesting because as you're saying those kinds of examples, these are not things that the average person, I can see where if I'm somebody who runs a business of hosting events, so if I have the Doria Fleischer traveling circus, which I'm sure would be so much fun, I would understand this because that's my full-time job. Right. That's what I do. But I can also appreciate that if you're just a community member who's hosting an event for the first time, you wouldn't know this.
Right.
We don't expect our community members to understand each detail. We just want them to know that if you're hosting an event, you need to reach out and get those details. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, if you're not sure that you would need a permit, we're always available to answer questions. And sometimes you can even just fill the application out and we could come back with no, because it does have so many different aspects of the application.
Gotcha. And Liz, when we were talking and preparing for this episode, you mentioned the idea that this is not the county, it's not Charles County government being the expert in all parts of this event. It's kind of Charles County government being like the organizer and the convener and the one that says you might want to think about this.
Absolutely. So the county government ends up being a very central source of information. So just as a matter of, I guess, just necessity, Charles County government says, submit this application, and we go ahead and distribute it out to a number of different agencies, just as Ms. Bilbra just went ahead and discussed. The bottom line, though, is that we are not the ones who are involved in all of it. What we're doing is simply collecting the data, distributing it to other agencies so that they can do their specialty review of different aspects of it. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
So Charles County government in its code says we want our residents to be safe because, we talked about kind of the different levels of safety, right? There's, if I'm the host, I need to protect myself liability-wise to make sure that my event is safe. But Charles County also wants to make sure that everybody coming to the event is safe.
Absolutely.
And that all the surrounding community members are safe, right? So that this is designed, and then Charles County government says, okay, now we'll let the experts step in. So if you're serving food, the health department would be the expert in that. If you're serving alcohol, the liquor board would be the expert on that. If you're talking about traffic and parking, then we need to make sure that we've got the right public safety involved in that.
Exactly.
Okay. I think there's so many levels of this, and I can see where if you're hosting an event, this might be the furthest thing you're thinking about, but really it should be the first thing that you think about before you even start planning, and definitely before you start advertising. And I appreciate, Cindy, that you said, reach out early and even fill out the application. Worst case, you don't need it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, Cindy, what should we know about, so somebody's thinking about having an event, they need to fill out a permit. What should they know about that filling out permit process?
Okay. First and most important, we need to know as soon as you start planning.
Okay.
We, on paper, say at least 45 days.
Okay.
But we get some of them 4, 5, 6 months in advance.
Okay.
And it's real helpful because sometimes the people that are hosting the party or event don't think of everything.
So there's not if I'm hosting a big event on July 1st, it's not like I need to mark my calendar 45 days before that and wait until then to put in the permit. If I know I'm hosting a big event on July 1st, I can submit this as soon as I've chosen that date and I'm ready. Okay.
Absolutely.
And actually, I would recommend that because, as we just finished talking about, there are a number of agencies that do different reviews, and they have different schedules. So for the liquor board, if they only meet once a month and it's on a Thursday, you want to make sure it is that you give enough lead time. So it could take longer than 45 days.
Yes.
So don't crunch yourself into 45 days, but 45 days is the kind of for those of us who might run late for things in life, 45 days is my Doria, you got to get that done. But I shouldn't wait until the 45 days. I hear you. And I can see from your face, Cindy, that you're laughing because of the number of residents like me who probably on 44 and a half days are
right.
Oh. Yeah. So 45 days before the event, at least, they need to go online and fill out an application.
Yes.
Okay. And what does that application look like?
Okay, so the application itself is quite lengthy. There are a lot of questions. Each question is for a purpose. And, sometimes some people are like, why did you ask that question? And they just don't fill it out. So then it slows the process down. But along with these questions that are going to be asked, you're going to be expected to provide a site layout.
Okay.
Which is a map of the property. Doesn't have to be drawn out by an engineer. It can be, and a lot of places already have that for if they have events at places sort of like the fairgrounds or the stadium.
I can say when I rent the fairgrounds, I can say I'm going to need that map that you use.
Yes.
Okay.
And then that you just put on there where a stage might be, where your vendors, if you have food vendors, because that's a big thing these days. You get food vendors at all the events, where they're going to be set up, and just anything that you're going to do on the property, we need to know. I mean, everyone looks at it. The sheriff's department would say, "Where's your parking?" Just there are different things.
All the different agencies
Yes.
are going to look at it with their own kind of lens of
yes,
what's important. Like the health
exactly.
department's like, I don't care where you park, but let's make sure your food's the right temperature.
Yes.
And the sheriff's office says, I don't care what you're serving for food, show me where you're going to
Right.
park. So everybody's
Right.
doing their own.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and the second thing that you would need to submit, it's called a owner affidavit form, and that's for the property owner to sign, and that form is actually available online.
So it would be my responsibility to take that to the property owner and say, hey, I've got to put in my, thank you for letting me use your property on July 1st. I need this from you, sign it, and then I put that in with my process.
Correct.
Because I just want to clarify for a minute. The event host is responsible for all of this. So we used the example of the Charles County Fairgrounds, which is a big property that people use for events. If I'm hosting an event at the fairgrounds, it is still my responsibility to have Doria Fleischer Circus. All this goes through me. It's not the fairgrounds' job.
Correct.
Once they rent it to me, it's on me.
And,
Okay.
And they have a lease agreement or a agreement that actually does say to contact Charles County.
So it then becomes the organizer's
for us,
responsibility. Okay. And fees associated with all of this?
Yes, there are fees for the public event permit itself. There's a fee of it's under $150. Other fees could come into play with the health department or liquor board or any, sometimes the sheriff's department will do security, and that's a fee that they charge them separate. But we only charge the application fee of $150.
And this would be another reason to start this process so early, right? Because I need to know what to charge for Doria Fleischer Circus. So
Exactly.
if I start the permit process early before I even put a ticket price on, and then all of a sudden I realize I owe blank number of dollars for the liquor license, then I know my tickets might need to adjust in price. Am I saying that accurately?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And Liz, can you touch a little bit on, again, going back to the why of this? Because I think there's always the two perspectives, right? There's like, government puts its nose in everything. Why is government involved in this? And also, when something goes wrong, why did nobody keep this from happening? Who was in charge? When this code was written, why was it decided that this was so important? And perhaps that's a silly question to ask.
I don't know that I necessarily can say why it's important.
When you were sitting at the table.
But I think it is important because these are, and I think I want to really highlight what Cindy was saying. When people put on an event, you don't necessarily think of all the things that might be involved in putting on an event. Like, for example, you suddenly need to know if you have more than 300 people that, well, guess what? They're probably going to need to go potty somewhere.
Right.
Those are things it is that, you don't necessarily think about. Or if you're in a place where you need to provide water at different stations, or if you are going to go ahead and have different vendors, are you going to be far enough away from any other adjacent property to not generate noise to disturb them? For example, you have generators that a lot of times that your food vendors may rely on. Things like that are important.
So it's helping, and I'm hesitating when I say that because I don't want to sound Pollyanna of like government is helping, but it really is designed to both protect and help. The idea is that you as the event organizer may not have thought of that, but we thought about it, and we're going to protect you by helping you make a plan for that before it happens. Okay.
And then traffic safety is another one of those things. All of a sudden, we have to send it to the sheriff's office because the sheriff's office needs to know, wait a second, this is at an intersection. I think anybody knows that when you go to the county fair, they will be regularly involved in blocking off certain accesses to Bell Out Newtown Road, or going ahead and routing people around to a certain entrance, so that therefore there is more traffic safety involvement.
So we're keeping the people safe who are going to the event, but we're
Exactly.
also keeping county running,
Yes.
whether there's an event or not. Because if I'm not going to the event, I still want to be able to travel on 301 and get back and forth
Safely.
where I need to go. I don't want your event messing up my weekend plans. So we talked a little bit, Liz, you just mentioned numbers, and Cindy, can you talk about the difference in event sizes? So do we have different rules if it gets bigger?
Yes, we do. The Charles County zoning ordinance says that you do need a permit for any type of event. There are additional regulations when you go over 300 people, and that we do look at the traffic patterns. We do make sure that there's a stabilized parking area for people and stuff to that nature. And if it's over 1,000 people, there is a bonding process or a guarantee process. The guarantee is a form that just the event holder signs, just saying that they're going to clean up after the event. They're you know, if they have to hire the emergency services, have ambulances there, they're guaranteeing that they're going to pay for that services.
So it's, again, making it's I don't have to understand this necessarily. You've done the work, or Charles County Code has done the work for us. Like if it's just packaged out. If you're doing this, you're going to need a this. If you're doing this, you're going to need a that. So my only job as the organizer and the host is to answer those questions and then follow the procedure as it goes along.
And something I kind of forgot to mention earlier, if people put up tents, or if they're putting up a stage for like a band or something, there is a building permit process for that. It's based on the size, which I wouldn't have that amount in my head whatsoever. But if you're planning on having a tent or stage, you need to contact the permits division just to give them the details of the structure so that we can make the determination whether a permit is needed. And that's another reason why we say come in before 45 days, because
there's a lot of steps
sometimes
here.
that process can take longer than the 45 days.
No, that makes sense. Cindy, you've been here a really long time. What, as you go to leave us in the summer, what is the number one thing that you would like our residents to remember as they think about events and permits?
Don't ever hesitate to call and ask if you think that you need to get permits for something, or, you know, your neighbor's doing something crazy.
Just check in.
Just check in.
I think that's so comforting. I find, Cindy, that I really appreciate you saying, instead of, you know, I think sometimes we hear from people, well, this is simple. How did you not understand this? Or I can't believe you're asking this question. How did you not know? So to hear you say, like, no, it's just plain confusing. Let's navigate it together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's so many different turns and twists to so many of the regulations that I think the best thing to do is to reach out and ask. Call Department of Planning and Growth Management. Give as much information as you can as to what it is that you're looking for, so that therefore you can be routed to the right person.
And get the right. And I think for the staff also, I mean, this is, I appreciate hearing we have to go through this as a process together. Like I need, you and I are going to work together to get this permit sorted out so that you can have an event and I can make sure the code is followed.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Liz, anything else that you want to touch on in terms of, you know, from that legal perspective?
I would just simply really underscore the need to just reach out and find information. Of course, our office, we'd be tasked with enforcing the code and violations in the code, but we don't need to get there if you just pick up the phone and call and ask.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the goal is don't involve Liz, right? Like Liz does not want to be the person that on July 1st, when I've spent all this time organizing this event and I'm so excited about it and the public's excited about it, it is too late then to want to step in and try to problem solve and fix things. We want to avoid
there's
that.
no problem solving. It's oh my gosh, you can't do this.
Right.
And that's not a very comfortable position for anybody.
No.
Because the purpose of many events is to have a really nice time.
Yes.
And if you help us help you think through all the things it is that can make it a successful
It's
event,
a partnership.
then in which case it really works.
Oh, thank you both so much. So I will make sure that we've got the Planning and Zoning Office information in the show notes. So if anybody needs to reach out to you, they can. And I'll make a note that specifically they're looking for the public event permits. That's the magic one for today. Cindy Bilbra, our planning supervisor, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for a lot of years of service. We are going to miss you very, very much. Liz Theobalds, our Deputy County Attorney, thanks as always for providing that legal background to everything we do on cracking the code so that our residents have a better grasp of all things related to zoning, permits, and regulations here in Charles County. And thank you for tuning in. We hope this episode was helpful and that you learned a lot, especially if you're planning an event here in Charles County. If you want to go back to other episodes, please check them out. And of course, we'll have new content coming your way soon. Thanks so much, Charles County. Take care, stay safe, and stay engaged.
Thanks for listening. If you like this podcast and want to hear more, search Charles County Government on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And be sure to like and subscribe. We're also available on YouTube. Search Charles County Commissioners. And stay connected for all county news, information, and programs by visiting www.charlescountymd.gov/stay connected.